Okay, now I'm going to talk about chapter 2 of The Future of an Illusion, in which Freud develops his notion of how civilization is surrounded by enemies. In chapter 2, Freud is going to argue that the individual, remember in chapter 1, he argued that the kernel of the problem, that what's at the heart of the problem between the civilization and the individual, what really accounts for the fact that the individual will always be unhappy in civilization. For Freud, the problem lies with the individual. For Marx, it lied with civilization. For Marx, fix civilization and the problem will go away, then we can have the utopian, golden age. For Freud, the problem is not going to go away because of the individual. In Chapter 2, Freud argues, and he's basing his argument upon the findings of psychoanalysis. He argues that in every individual are these three instinctual desires to commit incest, cannibalism, and killing, or they call it lust for killing. Now, you might say that's kind of strange. I mean, where did Freud get this from? Why does Freud believe that every individual has these instinctual desires to commit incest, commit cannibalism, and to kill? That seems kind of strange because most people would say they don't have these desires. Well, Freud's answer to that is that if he psychoanalyzed you and analyzed your dreams, he could show that you have these unconscious desires. That's what he believed. Now, I don't think if you study psychology today in the best universities in the world, most psychologists do not accept Freud's view. In fact, if you study psychology in universities today, you'll have one lecture on Freud. And that's about it, because Freud was a brilliant thinker, and it's important to know some of what he thought. But psychoanalysis is no longer taken seriously as a science. It's considered by most people to be Freud's mythology. The one idea that has lasted in psychoanalysis, the idea that we have unconscious mental desires and unconscious, there's a lot of unconscious mental activity going on in the human being that we're not aware of. So this idea of the unconscious is very important, but many specific claims that Freud made are not accepted. There's no evidence for it. But anyway, that's not the issue here. The issue is that what I want to get into is what Freud believed. And what Freud believed is that every individual has these instinctual desires to commit incest, cannibalism, and killing. Now, if that's the case, then that's obviously going to present a problem for civilization, because civilization now has to deal with individuals who have these instinctual desires. And it's going to have to prohibit them. It's going to have to come up with laws and institutions to prohibit these desires. And what's that going to do? It's going to create, the individual is going to experience the taboos. These are called taboos, these prohibitions against these desires are called taboos, and the taboos are against incest, cannibalism, and lust for killing. Freud believes that these are the earliest laws in the book, and they are universal. They apply to everyone without exception. The rich and the poor, the educated and the uneducated. So if this is Freud's view, and this is going to be, so we got all these taboos, these prohibitions against these incest, cannibalism, and lust for killing. And now these are things that the individual wants to do. Now, obviously, that's going to be experienced by the individual as a burden. The individual is going to be unhappy in civilization. The individuals are going to experience civilization as a burden and something they want to throw off. Well, why? Well, because it prohibits them from doing what they want to do. Now, that is a big problem there, because civilization is surrounded by enemies. It's surrounded by nature, untamed nature, and it's surrounded by individuals who hate it. So basically, Freud's view is that our relationship to civilization is a love-hate. It's a love-hate relationship. And in Freudian terms, that's called ambivalence. Freud would say that individuals have an ambivalent attitude towards civilization. We love it and we hate it. We love it because it protects us from our enemy, untamed nature. It defends us against untamed nature. We hate it because of all the laws and prohibitions it imposes on us. So it's a love-hate relationship. Now, civilization has to do something about that, because if civilization is composed of millions of people that hate it, and that if they had the opportunity, they would destroy it, civilization is going to have to come up with some way, some solution to this problem. So I mentioned in the last lecture that the future of an illusion can be seen as two problem solution sets. And so this is the first problem, and I'll tell you what the first solution is. So problem one, solution one. Let me go over that. And then I'll briefly mention what problem two and solution two will be, so you get the big picture of the future of an illusion. Because if you don't really understand how the future of an illusion is put together in terms of problem one, solution one, problem two, solution two, what's going to happen is you're going to get lost in the details. You won't be able to see the forest because of the trees. And so that's what I want to make. I'll try to explain both of these, and then I'll have to develop it later. Problem one, solution one. Here's the first problem. The first problem is that civilization is in danger of being destroyed. And it's in danger of being destroyed because it's surrounded by two enemies, and we are one of the enemies. Now, and the reason we hate civilization is because of the prohibitions. It's basically because of the taboos. They're the earliest prohibitions, and they are universal. Okay, now, that makes everybody hate civilization. And if they had the opportunity, they would do what they could to destroy it. Now, so what's civilization's solution to this? Civilization's solution basically is to offer a bribe. Freud doesn't call it a bribe. That's my own terminology. He uses the term mental assets. What civilization is going to do, the first solution to the problem is this. The problem is civilization has to do whatever it can to survive. If it doesn't come up with a solution, it will be destroyed. What's the solution? The first solution are the four mental assets. These, I call them bribes. Basically, it's going to be, John Locke talks about a social contract. Basically, what's going to happen is the civilization is going to say to the individual, I know you hate me. I know, you're not happy. You're discontent. Actually, Freud wrote a book after the future of an illusion called Civilization and Its Discontents. You're discontent, but let me do what I can to lessen your burden. Let me do what I can to make it so you will want to be a member of civilization. You will not want to destroy us. So civilization has to come up with a way to get the individual not to hate it and actually to want to be a part of it. And it's going to do so by offering four gifts, four presents, four good things. So Freud calls them mental assets. Now, civilization is going to say to the individual, the taboos are not going to go away. These laws against incest, cannibalism, and killing are not going off. They're not going away. You're still going to have to obey those laws. So you will always be, to some degree, discontent. I mean, that's not negotiable. Civilization is not negotiate on that. Civilization cannot get rid of these prohibitions, because if it does so, it will be destroyed. It would be absolute chaos would reign if everybody could just do whatever they wanted to do, follow their desires. If you hate somebody, you kill them. Civilization cannot function that way. So these laws have to be on the book. Civilization is going to say, though, I'm going to give you four things. The first, let me go what they are. The first, I'll list them and I'll briefly describe them. The first one is morality. Morality is the first gift. The second gift is our ideals. The third gift, or the third mental asset, is art. And the fourth one he briefly mentions at the end of chapter 2. He talks about later is religion. So these are the four mental assets, for the four bribes, the four gifts: morality, ideals, art, religion. Okay, so I'll explain each one. Morality might seem very strange because you say, why would the individual see that as a gift? I mean, why would, the societies of civilizations, I'm going to give you morality? Well, that's crazy, because the reason the individual hates civilization is because of the taboos. And these are moral laws. These are prohibitions. So you would think that the individual would say, the last thing I want is morality. But here's the key. Here's why morality is actually a mental asset. It's actually good for civilization. And it's actually good for the individual too. The way Freud understands morality, Freud defines morality as the internalization of external authority. So think about this. If the only reason the individual is obeying these taboos against incest, cannibalism, and killing, if the only reason you obey those rules is because somebody outside of you, some external authority, has a club to knock you on the head and to beat you up and to throw you into prison, well, civilization is going to have a lot of police on the street, right? And you're basically just going to be looking around for any opportunity you have to break the laws. Now, that will not work. Civilization has to find a better way to enforce its laws other than simply, external coercion. Like the authority has a club and they're going to knock you over the head if you disobey the law. What civilization has to do is to find some way to get the cop or the external authority into your mind. So you will not need somebody on the outside with a club to knock you over the head. The only reason you're not going to break the law is because there's some cop out there that's going to knock you over the head. What civilization needs to do is to get the cop into your head. So you yourself are your own cop. You yourself are your own authority. The external authority now is in your mind. So now when it comes to these committing incest or cannibalism or killing, now you don't say, once the law is in your mind, you don't say, oh, I would love to break this law, but I can't because there's some cop outside. No. Now, since the external authority has been put into your mind, you now have what Freud calls, you have your conscience. He calls it the superego. Now, this is very good because now you ask somebody, well, why don't you want to kill that person? Why don't you want to commit incest or cannibalism? And now you have a conscience. And you say, you know what? I don't want to do it. I make my own law up. It's not because I'm not, refraining from killing somebody because there's some cop outside of me. I am my own cop. My own conscience tells me not to do it. Now, that's very good for civilization because now civilization doesn't have to spend all its resources on having cops patrol the population. And now the individual, when they obey the law, they will be a little discontent because deep down inside they do want to commit these taboos. But they also don't want to commit them because they think they are wrong. So now they obey the law, not because they have to, but because they want to. And that's it's much easier to obey a law because you want to than because you have to. So this is the first mental asset is morality. And we now see why it's good. It's basically civilization is telling the individual, I'm going to give you something good. I'm going to give you morality. And now you're going to want to obey the law. So this is the first of the four mental assets. In the next lecture, I'll go over the other three. But right now, we're talking about the solution to the first problem. The problem civilization needs to survive, has to do whatever it can not to be destroyed. And the solution is to offer the four bribes or four mental assets. In the next lecture, I'll go over the other three.